Hey everyone, Richard here. Stuff we can do in Excel. So we're going to start by looking at how to use the subtotal function when we are working with tables. Now the subtotal function works differently with ranges of data than it does with tables, but let's go take a look at it. So we have a range of data here. Actually, this is a table of data. And I want you to see when I click on this, if I go up to data, I want you to notice that the subtotal is not optional. It's not an option to us. I'll do another video where it shows us how to use this when it's a range of data. This is only available when the data is in range format, not when it's in table format. But what I want to show you here is if we go up to design and we go over here, we can turn on a row down here called the total row, which can be very useful to us when we've got a table of data and we want to know what these totals are. Now right now this is summing up each of these percentages. We wouldn't normally do that. I'll fix that in just a moment. The first thing I want to show you is the fact that we've got these other cells here that don't seem to have totals in them, and we would like totals in each of these columns. So how do we do that? Well, even though we have the total function in this column here, it's actually in these other columns. It's just not turned on. So the way we do that, we click in one of the columns and we see the little drop box pop up. I'm going to hit the down arrow key and I'm going to hit the sum, and it's going to put that sum in there. And you notice it picked up the formatting of the numbers above it. I can do the same thing if I go here and I click Alt and down arrow. It brings up exactly the same window and it picks up the formatting. A third way to do this is to use auto sum, which is a tool within Excel, and I do that by hitting Alt equals. Only you'll notice when I do that, it does pick up the total, but it didn't pick up the formatting. So I probably might not want to do that here. I probably want to go ahead and use my drop down and pick sum again, and I get the number with the formatting. Now, what do I do about this over here? This drop down arrow, you got to understand a little bit about how the subtotal function works. So let's go look at the subtotal function up in the upper line. So you see up here in the formula line, we see that this feature in tables uses the subtotal command, right? The subtotal function. And it's got two arguments, and the first argument here is a 109 number. And what does that mean? Well, within subtotal, there are 11 different computational functions that you can do in Excel. And if I click here and click my Alt down arrow, it's going to bring up all those different functions. And you have them in the single, or the 1 through 11. Then you have 101 through 111. So what's the difference in those? Well, first let's look at what they've got. They've got average, count A, max, min, product. So there's a lot of difference. We've been using sum, but in this particular column, column F, we might want to use average. So we hit entry there, hit average, and it's going to pick up the average of those. Actually, it didn't do it. So let's go back and see why it didn't. We're going to go pick up average, and now you'll notice that the subtotal category is 101, right? So that function number it picked up was 101 instead of 109. Whereas if I go to the column E, you see it's column 109, right? And it's adding up the gross margin. Now, so I've got this function here. What are these other functions? What difference does it make if I use 101 or just use 1? Because if I use 1, it's going to give me exactly the same answer. It doesn't change. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is when you use the 100 series of commands, it's going to pick up only the cells that are not hidden. So for example, if I was to hide everything except for 2016, and I'm using 109. Right now it says the average is 55%. But if I hide those, I've got them highlighted. I'm going to right click and hide those lines. When I do that, notice this changes to 67.24%. It's the average of these four. Okay. Now, if I was to then go in and unhide those, it would make that different. Now, what if I used the 1 instead of 101? Watch what happens. When I use 1 instead of 101, it gives me, again, the total for all of my years, not just for the 4 they're showing. Typically, we want to show the totals for what we're showing, right? So I'm going to go back and change that back to 101. I want you to also see, first I'm going to go unhide these. Whoops. So we're going to go unhide these lines. Right click, unhide, and those lines are back. And I can sort this data now. So what if I just wanted to use, for instance, I'll go up here and use my sorting filter. So I'm going to use my filter on my table here, and I'm going to choose, I'm going to turn off all these. I'm just going to do 2016. And there it is, right? Now what if I wanted to use 2017 instead of 2016? I can get my average. What if I wanted the average for the last 5 years, 2018 through 2021? Whoops. I can get that by just changing. It shows me those lines and it changes the total back to, just shows me the lines that are showing, right? It doesn't show me all the lines, just the ones that are showing, and that's really important. And you notice there's a gap up here, and I can go back up here and I can fill in, change it back to all, and I get back to my 55.01%. So that's how we would use these in a table. Use the subtotal function. It's really easy. If we don't want to see those subtotals, we can turn them off. But again, it's a really useful tool if we're trying to sum up information that we want to show people in a table.